like you lost another one.
Welcome back to The Father's Advocate. I'm your host, Attorney Hughes, The Father's Advocate. First and foremost, I want to tell you guys, probably hear a raspy voice. That's because I'm a little bit under the weather. I just found out I got allergies, so you might hear some coughing throughout the podcast. But nevertheless, I am joined today with three wonderful fathers. But more importantly, these beautiful fathers, they are my brothers. That's right. This is the Johnson brothers, or the Brothers Johnson.
That's a group, actually.
Yeah. It is. But these are my brothers, so I'm excited about it. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting from the youngest to the oldest.
Peace and love. My name is Emanuel Johnson. Before I get into it, I want to say rest in peace to our oldest brother, Brian Paul Hughes, who is indeed himself a father as well, too, of two beautiful twins. Again, my name is Emanuel Johnson. I am a serial entrepreneur, and I've been blessed to manifest two beautiful, healthy babies, one daughter and one son.
All right. My name is Emanuel Johnson. I am blessed and honored to be here this afternoon with you guys. I am a music educator in the Metro Atlanta area. Also a professional musician that performs with a few bands in and around the city and a few church organizations as well. I am blessed to have just one young man under my tutelage and coming from my seed, which is Emanuel Johnson. He's a great young man, and hopefully with my direction and with God's approval, we'll move on through and he'll become a great young man and a great old man, just like his father before.
Nephew, what up?
What up? My name is Ezekiel Johnson. I am a behavioral support staff member at a middle school here in Metro Atlanta. I run a restorative alternative suspension program at my school. We work with social and emotional learning, restorative practices, and the I.M.P.A.C.T method in order to restore our students with their behavior that may not be so right. I'm also a Grammy nominated musician and the father of one of my biological daughters, and I have two bonus sons. I try not to refer to them as stepsons because that means some kind of detachment. So I call them bonus sons because God has blessed me to be in their lives.
That's beautiful.
Okay, excuse me. All right, so the topic today is the status of Black fatherhood. I want to ask you guys, what do you see Black fatherhood is? And then in answering that question, does it differ from fatherhood with other races? And we can start with Jeremiah.
I think Black fatherhood is a calling. I think it's a privilege. It's a lot of accountability. It's a lot of self-reflection, and it's a lot of providing in the sense of providing guidance, not really ruling over them because we all belong to the Creator, but just making sure that their steps are ordered in a way to where success is in the future. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that sometimes it can be overlooked because of the stereotypes of social media that Black fathers are not there, which is the furthest thing from the truth. We are actually in percentage the highest fathers in relationship with our kids. And I find it to be very enjoying. And I think anybody who does not have the pleasure of being in their children's lives, they should definitely reconsider. Because it's a privilege and a calling, from the Creator.
Okay.
All right. That was a wealth of information that was just given. So I'm gonna go on the other side of things. I think being a Black father means more than just being a dad and a donor to chromosomes with the younger seed. I think it's more about being a model, making sure that we model the correct behavior, not just to our immediate responsibility, which is our child, but making sure that we model the right behavior so that the world can see that this is the light that Black fathers bring to the table. This is the strength that Black fathers have in the community. And these are things that other Black fathers can latch on to and can see that, hey, I'm not alone. I can be a righteous fellow. I can be a good guy. I can be a model citizen. And it takes some of those who may not share those same attributes and make them want to aspire to be better. So being a Black father really puts us in a unique situation where it doesn't necessarily makes us fall off from other races. However, it does give us a unique opportunity to show what we have to bring to the table and dispel some of those stereotypes in which Jeremiah said that Black fathers are not present and are not liable in their students, their sons and daughters' lives. I think that's a very despicable rumor. I think that's something that really needs to be strengthened from a lot of what goes on. But at the same time, we'll keep this thing on a positive note, and I'm gonna spin it all over to Ezekiel.
I think Black fatherhood is a domestic and a community response to how we take care of our children. At times, because we have a lot of kids who don't have fathers, you are that step-in father, right? So as I spoke about working at a middle school, there's a lot of students who don't have male role models or a father figure at home. So it's not only my duty to my children, but also the duty to my community to show these young men how to be fathers, how to respond as a Black male in a non-threatening way. Because many times when fatherhood is looked at in a very threatening way, in a very authoritative way, and not a loving manner, right? So fathers and mothers love children differently, and we should not shy away from the way that men love and the way that men discipline and the way that men do things. So I think Black fatherhood is a position of truth, is a position of strength, it's a position of servitude to your community to ensure the next generation has a brighter future.
So Ezekiel, with what you have just said, is that how you think Black fatherhood different from other race and fatherhood?
Well, traditionally, I know growing up in my community, in my household and in other households that I speak to about my friends, they grew up in a female-dominated community, right? Because the lack of dads that are there. So I think our position is very unique to our situation because other communities, regardless of their socioeconomic status, they have fathers, right? So we see communities of immigrants who still have fathers, regardless if they come up here with nothing, they still honor that father situation. You have communities of affluency where it may come from a female stance, but again, they still honor their dads. I think in our community, we have to be very intentional about how we present fatherhood because it's not something that's always honored. It's always something that's looked at as an authoritative figure, something that is looked at as when you bring in the big guns and things of that nature. And again, male fatherhood has its unique spin on how we deal with our children, but it is a valid way of dealing with our children. We should deal with our children as men, and in a sense that speaks manhood.
Yeah, because it allows them to, especially when you're dealing with a young man, it allows them to understand the ability of making decisions, concrete decisions, and removing some of the estrogen or the femininity out of them when they want to go engage in conversation. It's a difference between looking someone in the eye when engaging in conversation. When you have a male, now I'm not saying that you can't gain those things if a man is not in the home, but I do believe that the one-on-one contact on a more consistent basis while being in the home further push that agenda of masculinity, because it's important when that young man grows up to be a man, he has to lead his family in the sense of providing security, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And then also in the sense of guidance. And understanding that a man has to be submissive to his family in order for his family to be submissive to him. And so that is another thing that I am, learning. And I think the blessed thing about me is that I had a multitude of male figures within my older brothers, and also right within the community, Uncle Paget, Mr. Webster, and then, even extended, Uncle Bo, rest in peace.
Band directors, coaches.
But yeah, a multitude, but that does not negate the fact, that does not excuse that a man absence in the house does do mental, it causes mental trauma. And so, that's what we need to, and we also need to look at the fact that why men are not in the home, because it's not as if some of them don't want to be, it's just that the situation causes for them not to be.
So I want to talk about that a bit later, but I do have some other questions. Why is Black fatherhood not celebrated? And I have a few ideas and topics where I want to ask, but before I do that, I do want to hear your input. Manny, you were the first one to give input, so I want to know why is Black Fatherhood not celebrated?
I would have to say, in general, I don't think fatherhood is celebrated.
Irrespective of race.
In respect of race, I don't think fatherhood is celebrated, but I think Black fatherhood has is not celebrated because it has a negative connotation put on it, as if you are only the authoritative figure, you're only the silent discipliner, you're only the person who comes in and steps in when there is trouble brewing. In Black fatherhood, there's a duality that must be you must have a dual approach to things. That duality not only makes you be that guy who's a disciplinarian, but also makes you be that guy who's also an understanding person, somebody who sees things not from just a one-sided or a tunnel vision type of situation.
Right.
You have to be on both sides of the coin. That's why I think it's very important that you have a male figure, if not a father, some male who is going to provide that guidance that you need in life, who's going to model those correct things for you. Because if not, that sense of duality that I'm speaking of will be lost. And I think that's why so many Black fathers, so many young Black men growing up have don't even know that sense of duality. You have to be a follower and a leader. I think one aspect of that, the latter is very much embraced by most people. The dad has to be the leader. That has to be the leader. You know, but you have to be a follower, not just a follower of your father, but a follower of God. You have to make sure that you put God at the helm of what you do. Knowing and having that understanding doesn't just come from, waking up one morning and saying, hey, now I understand how my father. No, you don't know. That comes from living these things. That comes from stumbling. That comes from falling. That comes from having small victories and those triumphs that make you really, really feel proud to be a father. When your child comes back and starts to repeat some of the things that you said, when your child comes back and starts to model some of those things that you're modeling, that really makes you proud as a father. But that level of duality, it has been solely negated and solely just undervalued in our community.
Appreciate it.
So I think also, like, as men, we don't do a great deal of wanting attention or praise for what we do. So being a man, in my opinion, being a provider has not changed since the beginning of time, right? Our role over thousands upon thousands of years have not changed based on how we do things. Now, culturally, it may differ from different races, different political affiliations, different cultures, but our role hasn't changed, like Jeremiah stated earlier, that protection role, that provider role, that loving role, uniquely being a male. Right. But I find out in our society here, at least since I've been around, it's been not an asset as manhood or malehood. It's been looked at as something, not just as a father, but just in general. It has been looked at as a positive, right? So it's very boxy in those things. And again, I feel like we don't put up a big fuss about that, right? We pay bills. We don't really go around. You ought to be thanking me because I paid the bills. We bring food to the house. We're not that person. We do what we're supposed to do because that's why we do it. Because we enjoy seeing the fact that we're providing. That's a big issue. Most young men that I speak with, they're trying to attain wealth, legally or illegally, just so they can do just that, so they can provide. Most young men I speak to want that, whether it's at the high school level, middle school level, even if they've been incarcerated. Most times they did what they did because they wanted to get some form of wealth. So at some point they can be a father. At some point they can take care of their family. At some point they can be proud to stand in front of their family and their wife or their girlfriend and say, I got this. So
can you repeat the question again? The one that you just asked about.
I said, why is it not celebrated?
What Black fatherhood, right?
Right, but I before you get to ask the question, I want to follow up. So the question really is, since I would say this, so why is it that Black fathers or fathers in general don't want to celebrate the things that you're doing?
Well, because
that's the first question, and I have a follow-up question. The follow-up question is, do you think if fathers were to celebrate those, as Manny said, those small milestones, that fatherhood would be embraced by more men?
Well, we don't, hold on for a second before you go. So we don't celebrate normality. Like, and what I mean by that is that we may celebrate something that's extraordinary, right? Being a father or providing is something that's base level. This is something that's really ground level stuff. This isn't anything that is extraordinary in our society or out of our community or outside of our community, right? So that's why I feel like men, we don't ask for this type of praise because this is nothing I'm doing that's special. Men have been doing this stuff for thousands upon thousands of years. if you are a sound man that's gotten to the level to be able to be that father figure, that husband, that provider, you have conquered that base notion in your head that you need certain level of boosting that doesn't really exist anymore because it's beyond me. It's beyond me getting boosts or accolades from people. That doesn't make me stop or start what I'm going to do. I do those things again because first my devotion to God and then my devotion to my family. So it transcends anything that needs to be superficial about saying something that is put my hands in the air because I'm great. That has nothing. If this is normal, this is base level normal stuff. I heard a comedian say before. To myself, I take care of all of my kids. You're supposed to take care of it. This is not something that you don't need a reward for that. This is something that should already be done. So because we don't aspire to have these type of accolades, doesn't mean we don't enjoy that from our wives when she say, "Hey, babe, good job," but we're not looking for it. You know,
it's nothing out of the order.
It's nothing out of the order. When I get up every morning and I have a great this is I have to drive to go to work. I don't get up because I'm looking for somebody to say good job. I'm getting up because that's my responsibility. That's what I'm supposed to do.
And responsibility, it covers everything else in your life. When you understand that this is what you do, you make that decision, and you understand that that decision falls in line with, you know what I'm saying, I need to get up. Ain't nobody gonna be around your bed when you get up and saying, all right, you got up again. No, I mean, this is what you do. And I want to, before you answer the second question, you said, why isn't Black Fatherhood celebrated, right?
Yes.
Well, because we're the chosen people, and Black fathers, you know, are the key to an abundance of secrets that will unlock us as a community. And that's why there's so many shows where women are very masculine nowadays. You know, they're taking, you know, manly roles and positions because it's meant to destroy the masculinity of the Black man. And the thing is that, you know, it emasculates, it embarrasses, it denounces, it's very dismissive. You understand? So that's why it's not celebrated, because we are actually out here, you know, kicking ass. But we're not looking for any accolades for that. But we're doing it because we don't know anything else other to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm a do it or not kind of thing. And it's like, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, the housing and stuff that I provide for my family is because, first off, the Creator has put me in a position to provide it. And then second off is that, you know, I do what I need to do because I understand that that's what comes in with the submission. You know what I'm saying? You have to provide, you know, and that's not to say that you're doing it solely by yourself, but there is a percentage. It's an unwritten rule that, you know, that your family is looking to you to provide A, B, C, and D. Just like how, and I spoke about this, you know, when I looked at Sierra give birth to Junior, there's no way in hell that, there's no other way that I could think any other way as to where I need to be greater every single day. I can't birth kids. The only thing I can do is take a piss and then get up out the bathroom and then that be it. But once you carry a child for 9 months, that is impeccable. And the least that we can do is do our part by providing, you know, being open on an emotional standpoint, you know, knowing what they need so that it's a revolving door. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's a big responsibility, and I think because there's a lack of education from childhood, a lot of men run away. But I also think that there aren't enough community resources in place to let these men know, hey, you know, it is a big step, but there are resources, there's people here. You know what I'm saying? Like I was prepared because I had brothers to show me. Right. And I also had sisters to show me. So whether that's good or bad, the paid or the exposure, the exposure was already set for me. So all I had to do was just walk in it in the way that I wanted to.
So in that line, I want to ask the question, because when I thought about this topic, there's a lot of stuff that came to mind. So one of the things that in terms of why it's not celebrated was the idea that there's government-sponsored welfare, which was designed, this was my research, and I also do believe this, but it was designed, in part, to kind of oust the father out of the home by saying if you have a man in the home,
then you can't get it.
you won't be entitled to certain
Which is-
monetary or financial benefits for the children. And then the more children you have, then the more benefits you have.
So,
Okay.
so,
Wait, was that,
I always,
was that the question?
well, that was her findings. I always say government is for those who need to be governed.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
Absolutely.
if you can govern,
Absolutely.
if you can govern your own mindset, regardless of whatever else is going on around you, that accountability lays with you. Prior to 1965, I think Black people had a marriage rate of over 80%. So, there was no reason to switch what we were doing, doing segregation. We had an idea of staying together, we had an idea of we have to work together. After that happened, after integration happened, it gave us a sense of freedom, and freedom comes with a responsibility. But again, I watch other races, other immigrants come to this country with little to nothing, and the wife respects the husband. I don't care if he's out there selling roses, selling oranges. He got somewhere to go back to at the end of the day. So I think it has a lot to do greater with how we relate to one another as Black men and Black women, more so than any government power. It doesn't matter what power comes into play. If that bond was strong enough, it wouldn't have come in between that. So you have different third world countries. I mean, I've traveled abroad. I'm sure my brothers have as well. And I've seen husband and wives living in shacks and shanties. And it has nothing to do with economics. It has everything to do with mutual respect and love for one another.
And choice.
So I think that those reports that you have are definitely true. There are government sponsors programs through the Moynihan report that people should definitely look at. But again, they can only present options.
Absolutely.
You have to be the one to take the course. And of course, we know that it was drugs flooding into our community, this, that, and the third. Okay, we know for a long time there's always been those type of things and those types of conflicts in our community. But that hadn't stopped our marital rate prior to 1965. Even coming out of slavery, we had some of the highest marital rates, right? Even we're talking about in Jim Crow, we're talking about in Black codes, we're talking about all these things that happened to our people, and we were able to still stay together through those things. It wasn't until women felt like they had a better option through the government that the man became somewhat obsolete. And again, that's a Black people problem. I don't think that's a Black man problem, a Black woman problem. It's a community issue, right? We talk about the community so much, but the key word in community is commune. How can we talk about saving the Black community if there's no people communing together, if there's no families? And I'm not talking about the admitting of the new family. I'm talking about the nuclear family, the man, the woman, and the children, right? And I'm not throwing any shade to those other situations, but this is what I believe that is going to be something that is crucial to how we do things, is that we have to have our children seeing these types of relationships and how they play out, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I work in behavior at my school, I see a lot of young men that get to middle school and they're very hostile towards other males. Not because they don't like males, simply because I don't have any interaction with you. So this is foreign to me. So any woman that approaches them with any discipline, they may look at that as something that may be a good thing because they're used to being raised around women.
Okay.
But again, I go back to government is for those who are to be governed. We don't need the government to tell us how to govern our lives on an everyday basis and also how we communicate with one another as far as male and female.
So do you guys believe that as well?
I do, and in the fear of trying to sound like every other Black man that brings up slavery and things like that. I mean, we have to acknowledge these things. I mean, Big Brother, government is really trying to be Big Daddy. You know what I mean? Pulling a lot of the men or the male aspect out of a lot of these households are really just a vantage point for them to insert themselves to make rules and decisions and things like that. I know we hear a lot of our women that are raising a lot of kids. We come from a female, rearing household as well, But I think that a lot of times our women see these opportunities to be independent, see these opportunities to be financially estranged from the situation so they can make more ideas. And I don't think that they may look at the true backlash of it all when it comes down to it. It's great to be taken care of. It's great to make your own independent decisions and things like that. However, eliminating one equation or one part of the equation from the situation doesn't make the situation any better. You may get to the answer, but you're going to get to the answer in a very long, roundabout, slobbing way. I mean, it's not going to come out as an authentic answer. Removing that male element from the household, in my opinion, it creates a stagnant situation that that isn't quickly repaired in 1 or 2 generations. That's going to be a situation that is going to be a generational gap
Forever going.
for forever going. I mean, it's really going to place a stagnant push on that mindset of that child, whether that child is going to be male or female, but it's going to put a stigma on their mind to think and believe that a male is not needed. A male is not valued. A male is not wanted. And like Ezekiel said, a lot of those young men coming to school, I work in the high school level, same situation, you know. It's interesting to me how we see that males, that a young man reacts to a male in one way and reacts to a female in a totally different way. I don't believe it's because that female has any more education or is providing any different level of instruction. I believe it's just what it is in the household. The dynamic of the household is my mama said it. You know what I mean? If your daddy ain't around to provide his, input on it, then that's just what it is. These young men, I don't think they're so much intimidated by men. I just think that in many cases they see a male as being non-existent. You know what I mean? So why take his
Or anytime they see a male, it's an authority. So whether it comes, that's why I say in my opening statement about we're not just an authoritative figure. Like whether you see him as a principal, you see him as a police, you see it, you always
someone is always going over you.
right.
Someone that can't relate to you as an
that conversation is he about to get me.
And vice versa. I mean, we know through TV shows and radio how, at times that, women will say, well, I'm gonna call your dad, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I just try to refrain, like, please don't call me when things are always going bad. No, that's not, don't use that person in that capacity, because then the child begins to think that the only utility my dad is used for is for discipline.
And mentally it's not conducive. I mean, it's a multitude of ways that we can go with this, but I would just start off from saying, the first thing that the government did was figured out how to destroy the Black community, and the solidarity of the Black community. The nucleus of it is the family. And so that's where Section 8 of subsidized housing came from. It originated from that to purposefully destroy the Black community. I mean, the education is there. Then right after that, the women's rights movement came up, where if you look at it, white women were the founders of it. No, they weren't the catalysts, they were the founders of it. But black women are the ones that actually took the brunt and the bear of it, because it was a setup once again. Then after that, in the 1970s, when they deindustrialized the Black communities, because you didn't have to have a degree in order to have wealth. You could work right in your neighborhood at the factory or working with your hands, right? And in the 1970s, they removed that as well too. So all of these things is to, I mean, J. Edgar Hoover said it. I mean, he said the biggest threat, to America is the Black man. I mean, it doesn't, and then found out that he is from Black ancestry, but that's a whole other situation. But when it's not hidden, actually, there was there was a whole other things, but the biggest thing is that, we have to understand that in our community, if everybody was to know their roles, and then by knowing their roles, you embrace the roles, and then you play those roles, instead of just throwing us in and saying when there's negativity arising, oh, well, I'm gonna call you daddy. No, it's not necessarily that, because I like to be there to eradicate anything that will make it get there to something negative. Hey, well, what's going on? Let's talk about it. Why are you feeling this way? We don't validate in our family. The Black man's emotions are not validated.
Well, I think at times that we feel like emotions is monopolized by our female counterparts, right? You don't have a monopoly on feelings. I have feelings as well. I have a thought pattern as well, and I'm just not an utility.
Yeah, it's like capitalism.
I'm just not an utility. Oftentimes I look at it as males, we are just a utility. Whether it's for sexual pleasure, whether it's for financial gratitude, whether it's for providing house, whether for protection. Like I am a little bit deeper. I am all those things.
So
but in addition to that, I'm a human being.
So you're not looked in a holistic sense.
It's about filling the voids, because normally if a woman is coming to a situation they're coming with all of their histories and everything that they've learned in the house. Same thing for a man as well too, which is why we are so quicker to run away. Because I know when I found out that Sierra and I was pregnant with Celine, I was scared as hell for like the first 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay, well,
So I want to talk about that as
so now what? You know what I'm saying? So what now what? It's almost like a thing where, you gotta give them a try. They're like, these kids didn't ask to be here. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't ask to be here. So what are you gonna do? Oh, well, my father did it. Oh, yeah, that's understandable. But they still didn't ask. They did not have anything to do with that. You have to unequivocally, you have to be damn accountable.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else to say to it, is that you just have to be accountable.
That A was for accountable. That's that buzzword.
Yeah.
I love
You know what I'm
that.
saying?
I love that.
Because even with middle school and high school kids, I have the pleasure of working with all of them. As a mental health therapist, I tell them I provide holistic solutions. I don't do therapy, because that's play. If we're going to do holistic, means to repair the whole person, right? So we're going to get to the root of the things, right? But even in my dealings in therapy, it also shines a light on myself. You know what I'm saying? To say, hey, okay, you're teaching these things, but you also got to be accountable in this capacity. You know what I'm saying? You have to, you got to want to do, this and this and this. And I mean, like I said, we can go on and on and on, but I think that's the biggest thing. We have to look within ourselves.
So, I have a question, a follow-up to all of what y'all said. So if it's not a myth, if it's about communing, if it's about both the women and the men communing together, if it's just that simple, how could we fix this? How could we change it? Because the reality of it all is that there are a lot of women, mother, head of a household. There are a lot of Black men that are not in their children's life. The unfortunate thing is that there are a lot of Black children that are being raised by single mothers who don't know their fathers. And for whatever reason, now, y'all know me, I'm very tough on men and women. I don't buy excuses. I just don't buy it. I don't care what the excuse is, because as Jeremiah said, well, yeah, you may have had some stumbles. These children are not to come here. So irrespective of that, you smiling, and probably what you want
with the last question.
But
he started with the last question.
Well, let's start with the eldest and go to the youngest.
All right,
Okay.
so I'll try to make this quick. We assume that most times that when the male is absent, that it's a male issue. So we assume, and I'll say this: we have to take accountability for both parties having something to do with that. Now, what I will see a lot of times, because we assume that most times that a child is born is because it's a result of a relationship. Nowadays, with our sexual promiscuity inside of our communities, everybody's just shooting the club up right now.
Shooting it up.
And you have to be, as a female, I'll talk about that first. You are the #1 top flight security of the world bouncer of your midsection. You have to vet these people that you are allowing to shoot the club in.
I love the way you
Now, the male has a responsibility also not to shoot the club up. So there has to be accountability on both parties. But it is so many kids, and I'm not gonna let somebody else talk to just the relationship area, but I will say the promiscuity as far as sexuality in our society, we assume that these people are together, right? Most times we assume that this is a boyfriend and a girlfriend, or this, that, and the third, and it's happening. It's a lot of times that these are one-night stands, or these are just sexual encounters that happen over and over again. And we are intelligent enough to know that the result of having sex, especially unprotected sex, is going to result in a baby at some point. If you keep on rolling the dice, you're gonna hit a 7 eventually. So we have to be cognizant of how we present ourselves as men and as women to the opposite sex.
Could I add to that? I think what you just said, I think there's a lack of education as well too, because yes, women are and Sierra and I, we talk about it all the time, women are as you adequately put it, they are the top flight security, but if you don't know your worth, then you don't know what you're superior.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the thing is that that's just like when the creator, blesses us with everything that we've meditated for, but yet we are not ready to for that nutrients, and we're not ready for those manifestations. You will lose them. If you don't use, the tools, then you will lose them. You know what I'm saying?
What are your tools?
Well, no. No, what I mean is that the tool that they're not using is their understanding of self-worth.
Mhm.
And this is, and this is what is what's disturbing to me, especially in the mental health field, because all I work with is women. A lot of times women use more of their kids' time than the kids do. And it's very disturbing because they are not understanding the game that they continue to put themselves in. Now, if a guy, and I'm not going to mention his name for HIPAA reasons, but if a guy disrespects you once, what in the world makes you think just because he says that he won't do it again, that he actually will not disrespect you again? I think that is preposterous. That is farce. It's foolish. If a man has the strength to put their hands on you the first time in that magnitude, then he most certainly will do it again. The question is what makes that man feel comfortable enough that he can put his hands on you? That's the thing, because and it's a two-way street, right? Because as if we're talking about being submissive, the man has to have enough respect and self-control to understand that when he is upset in the conversation, okay, well, I'm gonna just remove myself. Hey, we can agree to disagree all day long. I'm not gonna put my hands on you. Yeah, because if we're in that kind of relationship, then we don't need to be together. You know what I'm saying? We just don't need to, and that's with anybody. It don't have to be a marriage, just any relationship. If I can't fool with you, you know what I'm saying, to the point where every time I come around you, you know what I'm saying, like you just piss me off. It's like, no, it's best that we don't even, you know what I'm saying? So I think that, what do we need to do? You ask, you know what I'm saying? We need to unlearn some of these things that we have been fed by, the oppressors, and we need to start learning what really matters to us. And that is family. What does love really mean? What does validation really mean? A child does not need to be seen and not heard. That is foolish too, because you are not validating that child and how they feel. That's why a lot of people can't take what Celine brings to the table, because she's gonna tell you how she feels, and it ain't nothing that you can do about it, because she has the right to. Now I'm not saying be disrespectful, but she has feelings as well too. So that's something that, because like Ezekiel said earlier, just because we are older in age does not mean that we are mature in experience.
I agree. But now, Jeremiah and Ezekiel, you guys are, and Jeremiah, you kind of expounded about it a little bit more. But Ezekiel, you were saying, at least it came off this way, that you're putting a lot of burden on women in terms of trying to fix the problem in the Black community. What role does the man play? And before I say that, I take a position, if you look at it, okay, it might be loaded. I take a position from, whether you look at it from a Christian position or from an Islamic position, because I'm familiar with both of those religions. And both those religions say that the man is the head of the household. The woman, she was made from the man's rib. For me to be married to someone, I have had to find the rib that I was made from. And he's the one that, when God holds the family in charge and responsible, he holds the man responsible. So if we take that position, it seems to me that the man has the responsibility of bringing it together and bring the woman into the fold. And before I leave, I want to say, I have always been taught, and I believe this. So as you said, you can be taught one way, but you can learn, you can be untaught and you can learn. So what I have been taught and what I do believe is that men are actors and women are reactors. Oftentimes that is how it goes with nature. However, as we keep changing our different roles, deciding what's proper and what's not proper, those words kind of switch up. Now, that's not to say that what may work in your household may not work in my household, but ultimately, and I think through naturally speaking, men are actors, women are reactors. And if we take that position that they're the head of the household, God put them first, we came as their helpmate. And if we are the ones that's there, my thought is that the burden is really on the men. And if we take the position, what Jeremiah said is that we had to take the man out the household in order to hurt the community. Shouldn't the burden also be on the man, not just woman? And I agree, we need to be just, very selective about who comes into the club.
Mhm.
But what about the man's position?
So I'll go back to the segment I made when you asked about government. I made a distinct statement that said it was not a male problem or a female problem. I said this is a community problem.
Exactly, yeah,
And the reason I say that is that both parties has a part to play in it.
Yes.
No child is brought on this earth without having two people interact. Whether it's a artificial thing or whether it's, the natural way. So both parties play a part in this situation.
okay,
What I'm saying when it comes to the young lady is that you have a decision about who you allow to interact with you in that way. Now, being that the male is reactionary in that cause, right? Because let's just say 9 months later, or through the process, he does not have a decision whether or not that baby is going to be born
okay.
because of our great country and the rights that women have. So he can
But you know that
decide.
gives a right anymore.
Well, it's state by state. Well, so what I'm saying is that a woman after conception, a woman can decide whether or not she wants to hold the baby or whether she wants to terminate the baby, right? So, I'm not saying she has a greater role. I'm saying it's both of their responsibility.
Okay,
But when it comes to selecting a mate, right? Most times men will select, but a lot of times women will select again based on who you allow to enter your
club,
club, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes without a mission, because you ain't spending months and months spending at the club. You just going, one night and boom, you get entry to the club. So you have to safeguard yourself to ensure that you don't let anybody come into your club. I'm not saying it's your fault. What I'm saying is that you have to have discernment enough to know, because most men are not going to enter unless they get your consent. Now, rape does exist,
okay,
and I'm not going to say that.
yeah,
But again, it's different if they have a force of entry versus you land out a mat and saying, come on and come get it. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's earnestness on both parts. It's the male as well. He has to have discernment that even if I'm going in the club, I need to make sure I have a jacket on. You know what I'm saying? But at the same token, you have to be able to discern between who is coming in that club. And then once that baby is accepted, once that baby is born, once that baby is made, I think both of you guys have an obligation to fulfill that need to that child if you're going to bring that child full term. It's not about you anymore. It's not about you anymore. It's about that child. And if you're going to bring that child a full term, then you need to come up with an agreement, whether it's marriage, whether you're going to live together and raise the child, whatever the agreement is, it needs to come up with that, because that child has a right to be born, and we understand that a two-parent household is best for the child's development. He needs to have, or she needs to have, both energies in that atmosphere. She needs to see how mommy deals with the problem and how daddy deals with the problem. So now they have options. What I see constantly in my school setting is that they're only having one option, and they're dealing from a very feminine standpoint. And the young men, I'm not saying that they are sexual. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is how they deal with their problem is from a very emotional state, and they don't even consider the logical state. It's always reaction. Like you just talked about actors and reaction. It's always reaction. It's never. I've seen kids I've seen kids about to get jumped, and I say, well, I don't think that's the best decision for you to go outside right now, because there's 5 other guys that's waiting for you. Logically, that would tell you I might not need to go out there. That doesn't seem like a good position. I ain't gonna be this. Ain't gonna nobody think of me like this. That's a very irrational state. And I'm not saying that's a woman's standpoint. What I'm saying, what I'm saying is that they see the emotional side of things, right? And back to being males, we have to hone in on our emotional and our logical side. So a young person who grows up in a household with a male in the household, they can see this logical decision that being made. Hopefully, if they have a sound male, then they can have an option of whether or not I want to handle this in an emotional or a logical
so
way.
let me make sure I understand, because in part of what you're saying, it sounds like that child's reaction in part sounds like it's emotional, and that emotional part comes primarily from the woman. I'm not sure if is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but
She's saying
most, yeah,
It's
I
more
mean, I'm personally, that's the thing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is
Well,
that, what I'm saying is that a lot of the decisions that are being made, at least, like I said, with the students that I want to be very specific, with the students that I work with in our community, is very irrational.
Well, I can understand. I think
The household at times can be very hectic, and the way that they see their parents, and the way that I've seen their parents react to things, is not in a logical manner. It's in a very emotional level, right or wrong.
So the scenario that you gave, that was irrational to me. Whether you call it emotional or not, it just doesn't make any sense. But what I want to have clarification, if you're saying both parents in the household, it creates a holistic approach to dealing with.
It gives you a holistic option.
It gives you a holistic option to how you want to deal with this.
No, but what you did with it one way or another, that's up to you.
But the issue that we're having,
but it gives you, it gives you an option to respond to these things in one way or another. And I think the biggest situation was Zeke said with the accountability, that boils down to two things: responsibility and fault. We have to make sure that we absorb both of those things. If we have a car accident, both people are held responsible for driving defensively. But that fault thing is something that someone always wants to place blame on somebody else. We got to look at our responsibility in that. And we also have to share the fault when it comes to the whole notion of raising a child, the whole notion of being accountable or held accountable for these things. That whole illogical and logical thing, whether you want to place a gender on it or not, it's real and it's there. You cannot, the story that he used about the young man running outside to fight 5 guys, and there's only one of him. In my opinion, in my school system, the kids that I've encountered, I see the very same type of illogical, very quick to act, slow to think type of mentality. And very impulsive, very just I gotta do this right now. You know, and the thing is, the father, in my opinion, provides that logic. They provide that no factor. They provide that let me stop for a second and think factor. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying right or wrong again, judge me where you want to judge me. But I believe in my heart that that happens a lot. And I think removing that removing that I got to think factor, removing that be patient factor. I'm not saying women ain't patient. Don't quote me on that. But removing that from the element, it does tear down that holistic sense of things going on. I'm not saying that a two-parent household makes a perfect child. But I'm saying a two-parent household gives a child the duality or the sense of thinking in two ways before they act or react to what's going on.
Could it be also an impulsive child like the children you mentioned? Could it be a cultural or environment? Because such a thing. One second. So let's just say you live in a certain environment or a certain culture where the community in and of itself, where this child lives, they act off of emotions. They respond very quickly. But let's just say you live in a single family household raised by a woman, and you live in a community where, you know, they don't think quite that way. Could the situation be?
When you say what way? When you say
where they're not so impulsive.
Well,
They're not so
I mean,
impulsive. Isn't that a possibility?
I want to say this. We need to be cognizant of the fact that even in your home, with the great things that you're doing, we need to remember that there's still social media. There's still a bigger part that kids now have unadulterated amount of access to.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing about it is that even you know when Ezekiel was talking, there's just a high level of impulsivity, and with that impulsivity, they remove the fact of three things. So you have there's three states of mind. You have wise, reasonable, and emotional mind, all in that aspect, right? So when you're in wise mind, you're thinking very logically, very clearly. 9 times out of 10, the records show that men think from that capacity. When you are in reasonable mind, you're in between the two. You're in between wise and you're in between emotional. Then when you're in emotional mind, you're all the way on the deep end. Now, I'm not saying that comes from whichever side of a man or a woman. However, if you have another option to that, it gives you something to compare to. Instead of saying, well, hey, I'm gonna just go outside and get my ass whooped because I ain't gonna be no bitch. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because the first thing about it is that you're gonna get beat what we call the brakes off. So maybe you should want to reconsider so that you can live to fight another day.
So listen, I'm a woman, and I believe that situation was foolish. Like,
What
as a
situation?
female, as a woman, because you all understand that women are emotional. I'm a woman, have always been, and I would say that that is absolute unadulterated foolishness for you to think you can. I don't care how big and bad you think you are, and how well you think you can fight. I think you go out and try to fight 5 kids, and it's just little old you. That's just stupid. So, I mean, we're gonna have to move from this topic.
But
because we got other stuff to talk
that
about.
impulsivity thing is a big, and I just say in my personal experience. In dealing with, I'm around a lot of dads, you know, in my personal life, my professional life. And as men, the way we handle situations, it has to be in a calm state. And I just say this blatantly, because there's always a low level threat of violence amongst other men. We don't rush into situations, and if you that rarely ever, if we had a dad to come to a school, it's rarely ever a situation, if never, about I'm gonna blow this MFing up, or who that teacher is that said that much. It's never that. It's always a very calm, if not very stern state when it comes to males, right? So I think the way that we interact or we approach situations at times when we're our dads, when we are holding ourselves, it's always from a level that we understand that things can go quickly the opposite direction. So I have to approach it as much as I can in a very diplomatic state. And less, because once we cross that line, it's not much fighting that's going to be going. It's going to be some very lethal things that are going to happen after that line is crossed. So with our children, it's important for them to be around males. Even when I see street dudes, it's the same thing. You try to be as diplomatic as possible because you don't. Once you cross that line,
There's no coming back.
That's over with. It's a done deal with that. So males and how we deal with impulsivity, we have a lot of times we have to think a great deal. And I'll say males who have definitely did some thinking and some living in order to do that, because young men have issues with that, right? And I'll say they have issues with that because they don't have the balance of male and female energy in their home. Now, some men still have males in their home that still may not do all the great things. But again, to have those options is a good thing, not just to have that one side thing. You have to have the sweet and sour. You have to have the spicy and and the mild in order for it to be,
I want to move on from this topic, but what I want to add to this is that when you said about the men have a low level of violence. I want to add about when you said there's a low level of violence when it comes to men. I always tell my clients and I tell the viewers that when it comes to like fighting for child support, fighting for custody, fighting for visitation, my experience is that women will fight for it. Men don't want the drama. Men rather say, look, and I've seen it many times over, I'll go and try to have visitation with my children when they get 18 because I don't want to deal with mom. I think that's foolishness.
Well, that doesn't mean that is the decision that he wants. That means that is the decision that is present at the time.
Okay.
And we have to, before we move on, I want to just make sure that we understand how important words are. And the thing about it is that even, and I'm not being funny when I say that, because I don't know, even a scared man wants a relationship. Our greatest pride is our babies. You know what I'm saying? And I tell people that straight up. All of this it does not equate. My greatest accomplishment is being a father. That's it. Anything else is butter, baby. I mean, anything else that God provides, then cool. Let's ride the wave. But we have to understand that, and I say that because of the lack of nourishment that I was given to by my dad. But guess what? I had my stepdad that stepped in and said, no. This is what, I'm saying, every single day I'm gonna call. I ain't gonna miss a beat, your graduations, I'm gonna be there. When you don't make excuses, you don't damn make excuses. And that's just really, that's the greatest pride in the man. When you wanna be there, it don't matter if it's your brother. It don't matter, hey, I need you, can you let me hold this? The greatest pride is being able to provide it.
Okay, so that's, when you said excuses, there was no excuses, don't help. That's what I was saying. That's why I said.
I didn't say that, but
well, you just co-signed.
Yeah.
So essentially, what I'm saying is that when I hear fathers tell me, well, Miss Hughes, I'll just wait until the child gets, 18, or they start the process of trying to get visitation or custody, then they stop because they just don't want the drama. And I say to them, I said, look, sometimes you got to fight through the drama. Sometimes you got to get through it, because if you decide to leave this child and never have a relationship with the child, and the child grows up and don't really know who you are, who can you blame? And I understand, the situation and circumstances, but just like you said, if you want to be there, you will be there, even if it means having to jump through the fire.
Well,
There's a stigma. There's a stigma that men have that, especially Black men, right? Just traditionally, in the sense of authority and as a judicial system, whether it's criminal or whether any otherwise, Black men don't feel very comfortable or invested in the legal process.
I understand.
From many different factors.
I understand that, yeah.
So, like I take my situation for example. Like when I went to court for custody for my daughter, the woman was a judge, the bailiff was a judge. Everybody in that room, everybody in that room was a woman except for me. And I had down what I would like to have. I had a plan, this, that, and the third. Mostly everything I said was not honored. And this is stories that Black men will hear from other Black men, right? And it's assumed that in society that the woman is the most suitable person to raise a child. It's assumed that, right? I also worked at a daycare with 2 or 3 year olds, at one point. I swear for Lord, I was one of only 2 males in that whole place. And I swear for Lord, I was one of the most competent people in that place. And the unique experience I brought as a male got me so many accolades from parents and from the staff and from everybody else, because it is assumed that women are the best caretakers for children, and that is not. So I think that's a horrible assumption.
It is
to be made.
It is
because the stuff that I saw that women did to kids, I couldn't, like the neglect, and I'm not talking about they were around, harshly doing it, but you just were not attentive to their needs.
So I want to add that. I wasn't planning to do this topic, but I want to add to that because it's very, very important. First of all, as an attorney who do this type of work, I have to respectfully disagree with what you said with respect to how there is this myth that the court is not in favor of men.
Well,
but listen,
hold on. So I'm telling you that from that perspective.
No,
so
but I know. Let me tell you
sometimes
why.
we get kind of twisted.
Well,
is that women try to tell men about their perspective.
I can know what I will do. I can respect your experience and your feelings, but as an attorney, there's a difference, and so I think that's the biggest thing. So when I look at
Well, can I jump in? And I'm not gonna be long.
Okay.
Not validated.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I just look right on there. But you're doing what
you're feeling, your emotion, your
by respecting and leaving it on the table and validating what he said. That is
something different.
and that's the greatest miscommunication right there. Well, I respect it. No,
But
let's just shut we call the hell up and just understand that what I'm saying is this, and this is why guys are like, you know what? I'm good on that, because they're beaten. They're mentally.
So I totally love this because hearing your perspective helps me to understand that. Even if I didn't understand that at first, I can't say that I still do. But I like the fact that you. But I like the fact that you all kind of explain that. Go ahead, Emanuel, and I do have a point I want to talk to because it's important. Men need to know this.
As a lawyer, I know that you are speaking from legal terms and legal statistics as far as men may or may not be taken seriously in the legal justice, but that still has no bearing on the apprehension that men feel in their heart and they go into a situation. I've been to court, not for anything legal on the parental side, but I've been to court for traffic tickets. And I can tell you right now, walking in that courtroom, it is a very
daunting.
Oh, it's a very daunting. Thank you for that word. It is a very daunting feeling. And I'm not in there for any you're about to put me in jail for life or anything like that. I ain't in jail. I'm not in there for murder or for committing some type of violent crime. But just walking into that legal environment, knowing where Black men have been placed on their hierarchy of guilty, non-guilty, or no low, or whatever. You know what I mean? It puts you in a position where, as a man, you don't even feel as though what you want to say is going to be heard. You can come in there with a stack of papers. You come in there with all the evidence you want. And it is really still a feeling of apprehension, still a feeling of neglect, still a feeling that I'm not going to be given a fair shake just because I'm a man. And then being a Black man on top of that,
one word.
you know what I mean? It is a horrible experience, man. I mean,
What one word would you use to describe that?
terrifying.
It's
Because
it's
emasculating. It's emasculating.
It is emasculating. You remember that time when I went to court? Yeah, when you went to court with me, the lady lied. The enforcement code lady said that I didn't cut my grass. My grass was this big in front of the house. And remember we requested to see the documentation, and it took her 3 months, right?
Yeah.
When you came in court, you came and spoke with one person and they threw it out. I was in there for 5 minutes. But leading up to, you told me there's a possibility that I could go to jail for a year
For grass.
that and a lot, and this is why I don't play the jail jokes, because it's actually nothing funny. I remember your daughter made a joke about it, you know, as soon as I came home. It was actually nothing funny about it, because the thing about it is that people lose their minds mentally in a place that nobody in with any human regard belongs in an institution of that magnitude. It only takes 2 to 3 weeks for institutionalization to set in. Okay, I deal with there's a 55-year-old man old enough to be my father, and I give him counsel now, and he is institutionalized to the brim. He did 20 years, and it is nothing funny. Whether it's 2 months, how many stores Khalif Browder? How many documentaries is it going to take? You know what I'm saying? For us to understand that mental health and the state of it is not in a safe place, especially for Black men. It's something that's laughed about. Oh, well, y'all ain't give birth. Yeah, that's true. You know what I'm saying? But if I snap out and I smack your head between this and this table, then you know what I'm saying? So it needs to be a certain level of validation. 9 times out of 10, that's what we're asking for. We're asking for appropriate validation. There's things that y'all don't do that we do on a daily basis that you would never see. You just know that you got that luxury. You just know that you ain't got to come home and touch not a blade of these grasses, all these diapers and all. Now that's not to compare to say, you know, well, what I'm doing is equivalent to birth. Not what it is. But what it is saying is that, damn it, I am doing something.
It's a part that they play.
And I'm playing. Every time you throw me the alley-oop, I'm slam dunking that. I'm not laying it up. I'm slam dunking. I'm here. I'm here mentally, physically, and spiritually. You know what I'm saying? So it needs to be a level of validation that men are out and no, we're not your father. No, we are not. No, we are the ones that are coming in to try to redirect. But you have to give us the go ahead so that you can understand. I have to tell Sierra sometimes, you're not a single mother. You cut it out. I'm gonna just get the stroller and cut it out. You're not gonna do that because that's not what you're doing. You're a mother. You get Junior out the car, I get Salim out the car, and get the stroller. Cut it out. Anything else you trying to do, just cut it out.
And not saying that you can't do those things, but if you have a man here, use your man for all. Like, I'm here.
I'm
here. I don't want to say loud because that's giving some kind of permission, right? I'll just say that you have to learn how to step into your feminine, just like I have to learn how to step into my masculine to do what we need to do. And there's no lesser structure between the two. It's an equal structure, and we make this thing work together.
Okay,
So I want to say one point before you go. I do apologize. Just because it's difficult to go into court doesn't mean you shouldn't go.
Okay.
So I want to just come full circle around that. Just because it was difficult for me, I mean, I felt like I was sitting in.
Ew.
No. I felt like I was literally sitting in like a really huge chair. Like, I don't know if y'all can pick your mental mind. Yeah. Right. So this huge chair that's probably like a story tall. I felt like I was like, I literally could barely, like, it was so much anxiety in that situation because it didn't matter how of an upstanding person I was. It didn't matter about the accolades I had. It didn't matter that I went to university. It didn't matter that I didn't matter that I married her. None of that stuff mattered. At that point, I felt at some level helpless. And that's why I used the word terrified instead of emasculated, that my whole character and my whole being is being put on trial, not the fact that I have the ability to take care of this person. Meanwhile, years later, I have the ability to take care of 2 other people. So how am I not qualified to take care of the person that I birthed versus
2 other people that bonuses to
that's
So,
bonus.
It's called stupidity.
Well,
Everyone's
I
saying
have to disagree with the latter part, but what I will say, a couple things. This is such a blessing. Because again, as a woman and as an attorney, a lot of women, we don't get the privilege and we don't get the ability to hear this.
Y'all don't want to hear it.
Okay, Jeremiah, I need to come down. So listen, the thing is, and Ezekiel, I'll have to tell you guys, when I thought about doing this podcast, and we've done lots of fathers' rights seminars and stuff, it was my brothers that actually told me, you need to calm down, you need to chill out, you can't approach men this way. And the reason why I think it is such a beautiful thing, because as a woman, I don't see it that way. As an attorney, I see, look, and even with your situation, my thought is this: you have to understand the arena that you're in. Okay, so like if you go to court and I tell my clients all this, I give my clients homework. So for instance, my clients would tell me, they say, hey, Ms. Hughes, I've been calling my child's mother, my ex-wife, girlfriend, whatever. She's not calling me back. Or I try to FaceTime her, or I go pick her up, and a whole number of things. So I tell my clients, we're gonna do some homework. And we put down this homework, but you smiling, I wanna know what that is. But in any event, excuse me, the thing is that as an attorney, my thought is like, you have to know the arena. You have to know the players, you have to know the factors, you have to know how to present the evidence. Because the unfortunate thing is that the court is only concerned about what you're able to present. But hearing what you were saying, it makes it easier and you'll be a little bit more
do you really
sympathetic. I know it's true. I've actually been blessed to be able to get fathers who,
what court you be at?
Listen.
My court.
I honestly believe this. So I respect what you guys are saying, and I ask you to respect what I'm saying as truth as well. Because just listen to what you're saying. You go in there and you feel terrified. Your whole being is on trial. And Jeremiah said that it's a form of emasculation. I would have never guessed that, because in my mind, I'm trained as an attorney. So I see this way. This is what you need to do to present your case. So I've had cases where I've had a Black father with a criminal background. He went to a big law firm and they told him, look, dude, this is all we can get you. We can only get you every other weekend for visitation. That's called standing visitation. I think standing visitation is BS. You're not a father, you somebody just drop in and drop out. That's all it is. He came to my office and now he got custody of his children. His children's mother, she has to pay him child support. And she get every other weekend unless he said you can have more. So what I'm telling you is true. You have to know you have to know the arena. It's no different if I come into your place of business. I don't know how to play an instrument. I used to play around with the piano and the violin, but for real, I can't go on the stage trying to have a concert. I got to know the arena. And it's the same thing, but listen to what you guys are saying, man, it helps me, it opens up my mind. I can respect that. And when I talk to dads, I can be like, okay, I get it. Well, let's take it from a different perspective. Because I don't believe in excuses. I don't want to hear this mess that you are, my baby mama. I don't like using the term baby mama, baby daddy, but she won't let me do this. She won't let me do that. Because my first question is like, she won't let you do it, then what you gonna do about it? You have to do something about it. And okay, go ahead.
So it's always this low level sense of power. Like when I look at these situations of child custody, child rearing, it seems like it's always this thing about power, because some of the language you keep using, she won't let me, I can't.
That's what Declan said.
Well, what I'm saying is that using this type of language imply that some person has an upper hand
Absolutely.
and someone doesn't have an upper
Absolutely,
hand.
yeah.
So just going with what you were just saying a second ago about some law firms told you, well, this is all I can get you.
Yeah.
So again, it reinforces that fact. I'm not making an excuse. It reinforces the fact that even this law firm is telling me, and who else have they told this to? Black Fatherhood, Black what the other.
Absolutely.
They have told me that I generally don't have a power, right? So in a man's mind today, from the conception of the baby, I don't have any say in it. I can't determine whether or not that baby's gonna be born or not.
Absolutely.
If we do custody, I don't have any say in that.
Absolutely.
If we stay together and raise these kids, some women feel like they have a monopoly over how they raise kids. I don't have any say in that either.
Okay.
So to a lot of males, you begin to take the backseat role in certain things. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying you're conditioned to take that backseat role because at every point you're told that you're not capable. You're not able to make these decisions for this child. Now, again, you're a utility, you're gonna pay for this.
Right.
You're gonna do this, and that.
Right.
But when it comes to your input, it's not validated.
Okay.
It's because as a woman, I know how to take care of this child. I know how to do this. I know how to do that, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And I think women are conditioned to think that too. That's why a lot of times women will have that postpartum depression because they think that they're expected after, having this baby, that they're expected to know so much information, even if they go through, calculated courses and things of that nature through the pregnancy. They assume that they're supposed to know how these things work, right? And we don't. This is all a learned experience, especially for first-time parents. These are all learned experiences as you move forward. But I will say that doing your homework in court, it does pay off, right? So I remember when you were helping with my custody case, it was a very unique situation, right? So I asked you, I said, all right, we were geared up for court, we'll read all this stuff. We got this, that, and the third, and we were headed up to Virginia I think I called you the day before. We were headed up to Virginia to go handle the case, and you were gonna be my lawyer. And I felt firm in representation. I felt good about what I had done. I think it's 2 days before I called you. And we had my plan about what I was gonna ask for this, that, and third. So my ex-wife said, oh, I don't have money for a lawyer. Do we mind not using a lawyer? So that's when I called you and I said, and this is just my simple, and I tell guys, lawyer up always. Don't take nobody's word for anything. And I'm not saying this person
just be conscious of who you read.
I'm not saying this person is a bad person. I'm not saying this person is a bad person. I'm just saying that it played out in a horrible way. I called you 2 days prior to and just like, look, she don't have a lawyer, we're just gonna work it out once we get up there. Blah, blah. Because at the time I feel like we were still gonna make it as a couple. You know what I'm saying? We just had to do this temporary visitation. So again, my head is still in a very trusting state, a very just working it out type of state. So I get up there and find out that I told her that you weren't coming. When I get there, guess what? She has a lawyer. So
it's called game.
That really, and again, I don't know what the motivation was, but it was a messed up situation. And I'm not saying that my situation is unique. Maybe other people have the same situation. I'm just always interested when I talk to brothers about their situation. Because a lot of times nobody's just saying, I'm not going to deal with the baby. Most times guys are maybe around for a couple of weeks after the baby's born or a month or two. Sometimes, right? If they're in a relationship prior to. Like what happens at a junction? And we know that most situations fail because of finances. But at what junction does it just like you go from being there in the delivery room, being there through the whole pregnancy, doing this, that, and the third, to the point where it's just like,
when she starts talking to you stupid, when she removes the level of respect as if it did not take two people to create this child. Not only that, but it's just a sense of when you're raised around jackassness, and you are indoctrinated, and you see the fruit. Like I know, Sierra said to me, well, at first. I mean, because I just had to pull over in the parking lot and look like, no, you're not gonna talk to me like that. Like, we're just not gonna do that. Well, she came back and said, well, that's what I seen my mom, that's how I seen her talk to my dad. And I just had to reassure her that I'm neither one of those people, you know what I'm saying? And you're just not gonna talk to me like that. So we can you know, this can go either way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, you know, I've been shooting the same club for 13 years. So it's like, you know, hey, that's how long it's been, since 2010. So it's like, you know, my thing is that, you know, I'm here. You know, a man is want to show you, like I said, you know, they want to be invested too. But it's like when you start removing the respect, you know what I'm saying? A man got to have respect. It's like gas go to a car. It can't move without it. We got to have the respect.
And it's not, when you talking, it ain't power, it's respect.
No, it's not like brother having respect. It's a respect
Oh my God.
that you know, because that's a respect level. You know what I'm saying? It's not that. It's a, you know, I remember when I was talking to Dad, and I'm not going to bring it in, but there was some valuable things that he said to me. He said, I wanted to do more. And so when he said that to me, I'm like, oh, well, maybe there is another side to this journey that we have been taking upon, just like with slavery. You know, hey, you guys want to come over here. That is preposterous for you to even come out your mouth and even say that.
That's my story then.
Right? So when you learn the other side and you understand that, hey, I wanted to be there, however, you know what I'm saying, I was not given those choices, then this is where we are. Now, I'm not saying it's right.
We want to let Maddie get this, and I have another question. We're doing this a while.
Now that whole stripping of stripping of decisions can make a very confident man become a very docile person. And I think that's what you may have been encountering a lot of times when you're encountering these prospective clients that want to, you know, get your help and get things that go on with you. That level of disparity, that level of docileness is something that is injected by our society. Making men seem as if they're void of emotion, void of options, void of opinion. You know, the most the most popular as I watch these family shows on TV, the most popular that I've seen attribute of a lot of these men is that they're not opinionated when it comes to decisions of the house. I was watching the show the other day with Kevin James in it, and he relinquished, unknowingly, or maybe it was knowingly, he relinquished a lot of his household making decisions, as if the woman was the only person who can make these household decisions. And of course, those things, you know, permeated, you know, through the kids and everything else. You know, we have to stop as men releasing that type of buy-in. You know what I mean? We a lot of times believe that we can be silent giants. No, you can't be a silent giant in your house. You have to be a guy who is willing to say these things, because a woman will only disrespect you if you are leaving that window open for disrespect to come in there like that. I mean, men don't want to sit around and talk about emotion. We don't. I had to mentor some kids. We had a thing this year called SSS, where to mentor kids, and one of the things was emotion. You know, we talked about a lot of different topics, and the boys are very open with these topics. But when we got to the level of emotion, when we got to that topic of emotion, everybody shut up. Everybody's mouth was as tight as a crab's ass. I'm talking about younger kids.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's mouth was as tight as a crab ass. Nobody wanted to say nothing. You know what I mean? Nobody wanted to speak on it. And the thing is not that emotion is showing weakness, but I think that equates to a bigger problem in our society. Men think that emotion equates weakness. No, it don't. You know what I mean? Just because you show emotion does not make you weak in the way that you show it. Let me be clear on that. But you can show emotion or speak about emotion and not be a level of weakness. And I think that's what happens so many times with our young men as they're trying to go into their manhood. They get confused in thinking that because I'm telling somebody a certain thing, I have to tell them in this way in order for it to be heard. I got to speak it in an emotional way. I got to raise my voice. I think one of the things that men, or that I've embodied as a man, is knowing how to talk without showing that level of emotion, without screaming at somebody, how to get your point across without yelling, how to speak without being out of control, how to speak without being, I mean, and that's a maturity thing, but that's also a thing that we as men have to want to embrace. Because you're speaking and saying these things, does that mean that you are, you know, more or less being emotional, or like women like to say, you know, you acting like a female. You know what I mean? I
That's
think
disrespectful in itself.
as men, we've all heard that, if not said to us, we've heard it being said. Stop bitching. Stop being a bitch. And it's not about being a bitch. It's not about being, you know what I mean? We've heard it on TV. Or you acting like a bitch. No, you're not, man. I mean, you're just speaking what you're saying. I think that so many men don't want to be that bitch. So many men don't want to be that guy that speaks his mind. So we'll just kind of take the back seat and provide that docile type of situation. I know it's not you.
Clearly.
You know what I mean? Clearly it's not you. But there are so many men that take that backseat that don't want to speak up and say, hey, this is the way it's going to go. Hey, this is the way it's going to be. Not because I'm trying to take control, but because I too have input. You know what I mean? I think so many men have taken themselves out of the equation because they just feel as though me saying something.
They're voiceless.
Yeah, me saying something makes me a bitch. Me saying something makes me a complainer. No, I don't make you a complainer. It's all about the delivery, of course. You know what I mean? But you saying something gives you an active role in the way that things are going to go. It provides, it really, activates your participation.
I love the way, to be honest with you, I love the way women communicate, right? And I say that in a way that very unapologetic about what they feel. And they use colorful language, but I've learned as a man that I have to voice my opinions just as, like you were just saying, if I don't voice my opinion, then I don't have an opinion, right? So I can't cry about the outcome if I don't say anything about that. So I've learned over the years to be very vocal and how to first to do a great deal of listening, right? Because I think people will throw that back in your face a lot. Well, you ain't hear what I say. So, okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you the opportunity to listen, right? And I'm gonna treat you the way that you would like, that I would like to be treated. I'm a model of the behavior that I would like to see, right? So I think that women are very good at communicating. Not always in the way that it should be, but the fact that they take the opportunity to communicate. And I think because of what you just said, as far as being shouted down, this, that, and the third, you don't speak up as much as a male, right? And I've seen different, situations. I've never heard from a man personally not to do that. I've actually heard from more women not to do that. So when we
Not to do what?
Not to be emotional, like you just saying, stop acting like a bee. I need you to toughen up. I need you to do
But
this.
don't we teach our children, our boys, toughen up?
But
No.
I'll challenge you to say this. I was just talking to a dude about this the other day. Who does that? So if we're saying that men are not around, right? If we're saying that men are non-existent. So if that is being taught, I challenge you to think critically.
Who will teach them that?
Who's teaching?
But there, even in some households where their fathers in there, they'll say the same thing.
But you don't have to say that when you are modeling that for your children.
Yes.
Well, okay,
So I'll
I'm
say
saying
most-
you don't if you're modeling for your children, but for those parents, those that's their in household, sometimes they will tell the son.
That's toxic.
Toxic, they would say,
That's toxic.
That's a very horrible thing to say.
You gotta manage
Now,
what you're saying.
I will say that that's not something I hear often. I think we have to do a better job at explaining to our sons what we mean by that. So we have to be very vocal in how we do those things. I do see it on the football field. I do see it doing athletics. I need you to tighten up. I need you to, those type of things. Which I think that's certain. Well, which I think that's certain.
The same way.
Well, I think it's all about the dynamic of winning or the situation or the arena when it's being said, right?
Yeah.
So if we're crying, you just fell off your bike, this, that, and the third, I need you to get on up and wipe that off, get on about your business. But when you tell a young man that he should not voice his opinion or what you're saying is not valid or shut the F up, but like I've seen stuff like I've been on the martyr bus before and I've seen young men getting tore down by moms. I mean, like just tore down. I'm seeing moms call their boys N-word, you fat, stupid little, like just a whole gamut of things. And I'm shocked to know that if this is what you're saying as a young man, what kind of value does he place on himself as a young man? So I see constantly, and it says in the Quran, it says in the Bible as well, that Pharaoh killed the men and kept the women alive. And I feel like I sent this the statement one day to you guys as well. And I feel like our society does that. I feel like we kill the men, whether we're killing them physically or whether we're killing them mentally or spiritually, and we promote womanhood. Over the last couple of years in education, I've seen Black Girls Rock. I've seen Black Girl Magic. I've seen all these things to promote Black womanhood. But I failed to see anything that promotes manhood, right?
Okay.
And that to me is an issue, especially with a lot of these women who promote those things have sons as well. So if you don't promote our young men, then the very same young man that you want to marry a woman later what kind of value is he gonna find in himself because he doesn't have it? So I think we have to be very strategic, because even when we go all over the world, whether we're going to Afghanistan, whether we're going to Nigeria, you see different women activists that are, building schools for women, building school, and I'm not saying that isn't necessarily a bad thing to help out a certain portion of our society, but it becomes to be a very neglectful thing and unbalanced thing, because these same women that you're trying to empower, at some point they may want to have a mate. And if we haven't brought up the masculine role or the young men to be just as successful or just as empowered, then who will they have to choose from? They will still constantly choose from the lower level of young men that they're going to constantly have issues with constantly, because they don't know responsibility, they don't know respect, they don't know accountability. And inevitably they're not going to make good fathers, because now you're still going to be that leader. And I feel like we have in our society a very topsy-turvy environment.
Ezekiel, you make some very good points. I'll say this and then we're gonna move on. Only because it seems to me you're still putting the burden onus on the woman. And is that your position?
No.
Okay. So, but I do want to move on to another topic.
That's what you heard.
I thank you for the validation.
Absolutely.
I thank you for that. So I have some questions for you guys. Since becoming a father, how has your life changed, good, bad? And we can start with Jeremiah making noise over there. So go ahead, Jeremiah. How has your life changed?
I've been walking on cloud nine. It has pushed me to identify, greater within myself. It's important. I mean, I don't know any other way of putting it. There's challenging things, but all of rewards take work. And I'm thankful for the relationship that I have, in my babies, when I'm able to, look at them and have conversation with them and see them, see myself in them. But while also saying that, it's also important for me to know that they are created for me. So that's where that man comes in as well as too, and saying, hey, let's go ahead and get this situated right now. So I mean, I love it. I think it's cool. I love being with my kids, man. We thrift together. We frolic at the park, and it's just a cool thing to me. I mean,
so Jeremiah, you said you were scared for the first 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Why?
I mean, because man, that's a whole nother life. I mean, that's a huge responsibility that I was not directly taught.
It's a milestone.
You know what I'm saying? And you can see things all day long. You know what I'm saying? That's like, as a musician, you see somebody, going off on set. That don't mean you're gonna get on set and do the same thing. You just seen it. You was exposed to that. You know what I'm saying? But when the child is your responsibility, that's huge. To me, it is. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not about you at that point. To hell with you. It's about what you gonna do to provide for that soul. And you are responsible. The creator will hold you responsible for the success or non-success of that person. And that's just what we gotta understand. I was terrified. I mean, I was, but shortly thereafter, I realized that I am greater. And I also realized that I did not want to put the same type of mental damnation on my children that was put on me. And wow.
I'll say wow. So Emanuel, same question.
All right. So a little unconventional for me as a dad. I became a dad for the first time. I think I was 31, 32. So I was a little further on in life than my two brothers here. But it gave me an opportunity to look back on some things. I know one of the things that I'm always looking at, I've been working with high school students for about 14 years. Even before then, I was working with children. So I always prided myself on, knowing how to say the right thing, do the right thing, so forth and so on. However, I was entering into uncharted territory. So, being able to navigate those waters with your own child was something that was, it was not scary, but it provided a sense of nervousness. It provided a sense of nervousness that, I don't think I was prepared for, but I was not overly prepared for. Now, just a little personal, hit on that. My son was actually born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate, so being able to navigate those waters were a little bit more interesting, with the feedings and with, some things that came along with that. So, but, handsome young man, love him. I still love him, still cherish him and the time that we spend together as a family. So I'm not at all shaken, or not at all too shaken when he was born with a cleft lip or a cleft palate. I was really just ecstatic about the whole process. I mean, being in a birthing room, being in that situation. I mean, of course, I seen it on TV. I was unfortunate enough to see your birth.
My birth was the birth of your niece.
The birth of my niece. I'm sorry. So that, that gave me some, no, we saw it. But it gave me some insight, but it was nothing like seeing it firsthand. That was really, really great and impactful for me. So it made me grow up really, really fast. Even at the age of 31, it made me start looking at things a little differently. I started putting myself under a microscope, started saying, hey, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Am I doing that thing? Even when he was in the womb, you know what I mean? Of course, babies can, have a certain perception that they can, take a hold on even, inside the womb before they're born. So just making sure that I provide and continue to provide an environment where he can thrive, where he can be successful, where he can feel confident, where he can know that dad and mom are here for him, no matter what the complications are moving forward. We're going to provide a great dome of solitude, a great dome of just spiritual and emotional and just physical love for him, so that he can grow up knowing that, hey, this is normal for me. I encounter so many kids that exhibit some abnormal personalities, have some abnormal emotions, and I'm just always reminded every day. And this is no hit on one kid or any of them, but I'm just always, mindful of what I must do as a father, so my child don't exhibit those type of things. Not to say that child is bad or going to be, not or ill-prepared in the future, but being in high school, that's the end result. That's the last stop before your child is out there on his own. So being and working on a high school level, I'm seeing these things in those students that I want to make sure that, I kind of hoard against, not in a bad way, not hoard in a bad way, but hoard in a way that it does not impact them on negatively. Those kids have great value, great worth to me. And I thank God every day that I'm allowed to be around those kids, but also it gives me some insight into the teenage life, insight into the way that they are and how they are, and some things I can do to them to safeguard those things. Nobody's perfect. It may not ever work out that way. However, I'm gonna keep, running on that treadmill, trying to get that brother where he needs to be.
Brief statement.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay,
It was brief in his mind.
So for me, it was a game. It was game time. Dang. So, I was just graduated from college. I was already going to get married to my ex-wife anyway. And so when it came to us finding out that we were expecting, it was game time. It was like a go. It was like, boom, get married, have our daughter, get set up. We both got college degrees, and everything on paper seemed very pleasing and pleasurable. But then life set in, right? So, we both had to learn how to deal with postpartum labor and the depression and the things that come along with that. We both found a lot about ourselves after that. But again, I was a person that I read a lot of books through college about fatherhood, about our ancestry, about being a strong, so that was my whole thing was like, boom, strong black man to the rest. Like it was just, I felt like everything I've learned in life prepared me for this moment. This was like all the pieces are connected. I'm like all the books that I've read as far as our ancestry, our heritage, everything I've learned about growing up being a man, everything I learned from the males in my life. I really felt Rights of Passion program. I really felt like very prepared. It's the relationship aspect that took me forward, right? Because even now I'm still a good dad to my daughter. But being able to relate to her mother in a way that was going to be profitable, I think that's where profitable.
You heard me say it.
I think profitable in the fact that we're gaining this
Mutual
experience
respect.
and mutual respect for one another, right? And I think that beforehand, everything was fine, but putting a child into an environment where you're new to this, and not only are you new, but you're young to this, right? So all of your friends don't have these experiences. Whether it's my friends, whether it's her friends, they don't have these experiences. So we didn't have a pool or a community of people to pull from to, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I feel like, well, we're a married couple, we should hang around other married couples, but where they at?
Right.
We don't have any other, there's no other young married couples. Everyone that we know, and respectively so, no one tried to jeer us either way. But we were just kind of like fish in the water. We were just trying to figure this thing out, you know, ourselves, you know, so it was just like those barriers came up, and you know, but again, when it comes to fatherhood, it was just like I was there through all the birthday parties. I remember because it was Monday night football. And I remember that missing that whole year of Monday night football because we had to go to birthday class. Every Monday we was there at birthday class. To the point where we had to do the one. So we did actual natural childbirth. So I actually helped in the delivery room with our doula and like everything. Again, it looked very beautiful. But it was on the other side of things where things did not work out as well as it could have. So to answer your question, as far as fatherhood, oh, I was excited. I'm still excited. When I got my bonus sons, it was the same thing because I hadn't had physical sons, but now I was blessed to have two sons. I'm like, boom, I got two of this. Like, I work with kids my whole life. I'm thinking about from age 14 since I had a job all the way up until now. I've always worked with kids, working in the capacity to educate, right? So I just felt very excited. And I still feel excited now. You know, I took two of them to college. My daughter, she's 16 now. She's going to be going to college soon. So like, it's all a great process. I wouldn't change it for her. I wouldn't change anything that was done. Of course, I would have loved to stay with her mom and things of that nature, but life leads us in different ways. And you know, no disrespect to my current wife, but my daughter, I realized early on, my daughter deserved to have a two-parent household, right? So I saw the same challenges she's facing nowadays as a only child to a parent, that she's facing huge challenges because she doesn't like, we talk, you know, quite often every day. She comes to visit me and, you know, so on for summers and holidays and birthdays and graduations. But there's nothing like being there every single day. A phone call doesn't do that.
Yeah.
A visit doesn't do that. Being that day-to-day person, it does something different. And I see that in my bonus sons because they had the privilege of having me there every single day. From the time they went to school to the time I came home. We were there working things out, toiling, this, that, and the third. So fatherhood is a blessed thing. If you have the opportunity to do it, I would say do it in the right way. Also be cognizant of who you procreating with, because that's going to determine how your child is going to develop as they move forward. So there's a lot of deep work you have to do in self before you can even bring about a mate into your situation. I mean, it took me almost 10 years before getting married again because I had to make sure that I was straight. Because I was so super excited about this. I mean, y'all know y'all was in the wedding. I was so super excited that anything negative didn't even enter my mind. Like, so it was nothing in my mind that said anything negative or trials or whatever come up, we just gonna deal with. Like, I was so very optimistic about that situation. So when it didn't work out, it took me very hard because I was so sure of myself. I mean, I can imagine, I just got my degree, I just finished school, I'm on cloud 9, I'm feeling great, all these other things. So it made me think about my decision-making process from that point forward. So it took me a long time before I could really lend myself to somebody like that again, and to make sure that, hey, what work do I need to do with self to ensure that next time this happens, it's going to be a profitable situation.
Okay. You don't know how to be brief either. Okay, gotcha.
Deep question.
Okay, the next question, we Ezekiel pretty much hit on it. You wouldn't do anything differently, but Manny and Jeremiah, if you could do anything differently when it comes to fatherhood, what would you do if anything?
I would have had twins.
Okay. But you don't have to.
Yeah, of course, but God willing, I don't think there's anything that I would have done differently. To be honest with you, I think all the good and the bad has made me grow, has made our family grow. I think the only thing I could have done better was have a better credit score, but that's in the world.
Okay,
I think if I could have did anything better, it would have been my reaction to the arrival of Celine those first 2 weeks, because that really put a negative connotation on the whole entire process. And I'm able to realize that because I wasn't positively receptive to it. And
So
you
what-
know, to the announcement of Celine, like I said, I was scared.
So Jeremiah, you had a second child, the following baby junior.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you respond to him? Was really
Oh, it was game time, and game time stands for God answers me every time. And so, you know, that's what I wanted. I wanted, you know, 2 kids, you know what I'm saying? I wanted one to be, you know, Celine, and then I wanted Junior. And so, you know, I was ecstatic, you know, at that point. I mean, because I knew I had experience, I was exposed.
So
I had 4 years in the game, you know, and you know, Sierra and I we spoke about, you know, having another child and then being done with it. So, you know, the second time, you know, I was good. You know, now his birth, that took me for a loop. And I was not prepared for that. You know what I'm saying? Not prepared.
Do you want to talk about that very?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, he was born at 4 term, but Sierra had gestational diabetes, and I'm not sure. I did some research on that. But I've realized that he had to stay in the NICU for 3.5, like 4 weeks, and that killed us.
Mhm.
Especially Sierra, you know.
So that was my next question. Did you all experience, with your respective wives, did you all experience any type of symptoms or feelings? Like mom would generally have morning sickness. And I believe there's this myth that dads may not have morning sickness, but you get some other kind of emotions or experience.
And
then-
more so empathy things, you know,
Okay.
having seen a loved one going through different things. You feel some kind of way about that. Also, physical, you know, challenges. I know because my daughter's mother was eating a lot, and I started eating a lot. Possibly not the right foods, you know what I'm saying? Because she was used to cooking and I was not. So we had to develop those types of roles. But not more so empathy. But I think at some level I was a little peed off at some points, because I felt like pregnancy was being very over trivialized. And again, I'm not a woman, so I don't want to put that out there like that, but it seemed like a TV show. It seemed like a TV show, like you were doing a lot that possibly. I'm sure it sounds insensitive, but I felt like it was okay. But I felt like it was very I think some things were over the top. Like the way well, yeah. I mean, but that's how it got. But again, that was my 24-year-old self. So my thoughts now are different.
Okay.
But that at my 20, okay, either way. But at my 24-year-old self, I felt like I couldn't do enough to please this person. I felt like no matter how much I tried to please this person, it just wasn't good enough. So it affected me mentally in how I dealt with situations, because I'm busting my butt to try to please this person, and at every turn, there's some kind of opposition. It didn't matter what was going on. You know, I could be tiptoeing and you making too much noise. Like this, you know. So I could say that yes, having empathy for that person, because that person is your mate. But I think at times that person could have been a little bit it was a bit much at times, I'll say that.
Okay, man.
I say I had a mild case of anxiety. Only because I think I felt maybe the same thing that Zeke was feeling, and I don't think that's a twin thing. I just think that's just because we're dealing with when
Over
you're
the top?
pregnant.
You would say they're over the top?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, she be trying to bait you with your
In
answers.
the sense that, you know, pregnancy is new, we're new for terrorists, like it was new for Shannon. You know what I mean? So I know that with the second pregnancy would have happened, things probably would have been a lot different. And maybe Jeremiah would be the one to answer that. But on my end, just anxiety, you know, making sure that I'm doing all the right things. And as you know, the process started to go forward. And even once the process was over, I just, you know, had comfort in knowing that I did do the right things, and that there are no perfect things to do. We just got to make sure that we are, you know, just there listening and try to be receptive as much as possible to the situation and try not to lash out, because there are some things that I experienced while Sharon was pregnant that I could have lashed out at. You know what I mean? I could have said some things that, but at the same time, I had to put that more so on circumstance and not the person. But anxiety came more so toward the end of the pregnancy. Of course, we've all seen those TV shows where we've seen men rushing out in the middle of the night, or couples rushing out in the middle of the night trying to get things together, so forth and so on. I had all my bags packed. I had all those things I'm supposed to have, but it was nothing like getting that call and saying, hey, we're ready to go. Hey, I'm ready to go. Let's go. You know what I mean? And as we got closer to the full term, my mind, I didn't sleep well. My mind was always on, oh, gotta jump up now. Oh, gotta do this now. It was always something, even she rolled over. Oh, yeah, it was always a jumpiness and an edginess toward the end of the pregnancy. But when it was all said and done, man, it was a quick birth. It went a lot quicker than I thought. The labor part went a lot longer, but the actual birth, well, I mean, that thing was quick, man. I was out there, that's it? Okay, let's move on then. But that's just me. Go ahead, Jack.
Jeremiah.
What was, I thought I went first. What was
You did.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I don't want to be that there.
Last question then. What advice would you give to fathers who are having difficulties either trying to visit or custody or anything, just trying to have a relationship with their children?
Let us pray.
For you, the person got it.
Effective communication, man. Be very wise who you choose in your mate. Also, even when you're with a person, please be in wise mind to determine if I should shoot this club up. Because 9 times out of 10, what it look like in the parking lot, probably worse on the inside of the club. Okay. So just be mindful of that. It's not, because once you get past that and you get with a person, because we all come with baggage. But once you get to a point where we can say, hey, when you can see your future in another person's eyes, then I think you've cracked the code. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, if we validate each other and we honestly invest in each other's dreams, then the kids are just gonna have a wonderful life. Now that don't mean it's gonna be perfect, but it means you're gonna have 2 stable, mentally healthy people with your best interest at heart.
Okay, Emanuel.
So I'm gonna need you to repeat the question, but there was a lot of things said that made me redirect. Go ahead.
So what advice would you give to fathers, primarily those that have children now,
Okay.
who are having difficulties having a relationship like visiting, custody, or just having a relationship with the child?
Be active and be present. Make
Okay.
sure that being active and being present is at the helm of what you're doing. What you don't want to be said by neither your children nor your ex-wife or whatever the case, whatever she is. You don't want it to be said that you were not there earnestly trying to be a part of the situation, earnestly trying to insert yourself into a situation that's going to flourish. Because whether the child sees you every day or sees you once a week, you want that child to build some type of familiarity, not just with your presence, but with your aura, with who you are as a person. Because when it's all said and done, let's just be real. Through situations like that, there are going to be some things said about your father that you may or may not buy into. But if that father is reverently present and always there and always showing you who he is, then there's not a lot that can be said that can deter you away from who he is as a person, because he's there. That's one thing that I see, and I know I'm going off on a little tangent. I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop in a second. That's one thing that I see out of a lot of our women is that if we can't make it work with the man, then I'm gonna beat him down to his children, because I want your children to see what I saw in you. And the thing is, there's a different relationship between man and woman and father and child. And I don't think that anybody has the right, man or woman, to impede on the visual representation or the emotional representation or the spiritual representation of that father or mother to that particular child. Whatever issues you had between a relationship, man, woman, that has no should have no bias on the way that child sees their father or their mother. I think that when things like that happen, it beats down on the whole family structure. Not saying that the family has to be together to be a family, but it beats down on that whole thing. And it leaves the child confused. It leaves to them emotionally overwhelmed or underwhelmed. And it puts them in a position where they are seeing their father through their mother's eyes and not seeing their father through their eyes. And I think that really puts a stank on a whole lot. Because if that child does not see that father for who he truly is through their own eyes, then they're going to grow up to start manifesting ideas about what a man is or who they should be or what type of man they should go for when they become a man. You know what I mean? That beating down of the man. I think that whole celebration that you were talking about it, and really celebration more so is what Jeremiah was talking about being validated. I think men would more so want to be validated than celebrated. But that whole notion of being validated is something that children have to look up and see when they looking at dad's face and when they looking at dad's over. And I'm sorry for taking too much time.
Okay.
That was it there.
Repeat it again.
I think dads just need to be there for their children. If you're gonna be there to shoot the club up, you gotta be there for the let out.
Gotta shoot the club.
So be there for the let out. So just plain and simple. It takes two people to make a child. It takes two people to raise a child. The child deserves to have both parents in their life. They have to have a male influence, like they need to have a female influence. There's no way of getting around it. There's no way of trying to sugarcoat it. There's no way of trying to artificially inseminate it, dilute it. Children need to have both perspectives from their parents. So,
Okay.
Yep.
You don't want to pay attention, no baby. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been the Father's Advocate. Until next time.
Be a father.
Be a dad.
And we out.
So, okay. Hey fathers, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I also hope you were inspired and you learned something new and helpful. As always, you're not in this alone. Don't stop fighting. Your children do need you. If you enjoyed the episode or if it was helpful to you in any way, please consider following us wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube, The Father's Advocate. Hit the like button, share this episode with other fathers, and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave us a comment or suggestion of topics you'd like us to explore. Please share your thoughts and participate in our online questionnaire. We would really like to know what you think. Lastly, we would like to honor fathers by hosting the first ever father-child athletic competition and father-daughter dance. If you'd like to attend, be a guest speaker, a sponsor, volunteer, or anything in between, please contact us at info@thefathersadvocate.com. See you next week for another episode. Until then, this is the Father's Advocate, Attorney Hughes.